What do you think? Would it be possible due to if a digital superintelligent agent suddenly appeared and decided to rule the world for some reason? In this video, we look at some potential superintelligence abilities and the things they might let it accomplish. We present a takeover scenario that demonstrates how a superintelligent agent could become a singleton, or you say just a monster as a software. We also make a few comments regarding the connection between controlling nature and controlling other agents. Humanity's dominant position on Earth is primarily due to our brain's slightly greater range of cognitive abilities when compared to those of other animals. And because of how effectively we can transmit culture thanks to our higher intelligence, knowledge and technology are passed down from one generation to the next. And by this point, enough information has accumulated to enable the development of hydrogen bombs, computers, genetic engineering, factory farming, insecticides, the international peace movement, etc., and all the other conveniences of contemporary civilization. And because of the distinct biotic, sedimentary, and geochemical trace of human activity, geologists have begun calling the current epoch the Anthropocene. According to one estimate, human beings take 24% of the net primary production of the planet's ecosystem. Nevertheless, we have not yet reached the physical limits of technology. These findings support the idea that any kind of being that attained an intelligence far beyond that of human would be capable of being very powerful. Such entities could create new technologies much more quickly than we can and accumulate content much more quickly than we can. Additionally, they may be able to strategize more skillfully than we can by using their intelligence. Now, let's take a look at some of the potential traits and applications of a superintelligence. When considering the possible effects of superintelligence, it's important to avoid anthropomorphizing it. Anthropomorphic frames foster unwarranted assumptions about the CDAI's trajectory of development and about the psychology, goals, and abilities of a fully developed superintelligence. Common misconception, for example, is that a superintelligent machine would be very similar to a very smart but nerdy human being. We envision the AI as being logical but lacking in intuition and creativity, or as being book smart but lacking in social skills. And the theory must likely develop as a result of observations made about modern computers, which excel at calculation, fact recall, and letter of the law compliance, but are unaffected by social context and subtext, norms, emotions, and, of course, politics. The correlation is further supported by the observation that computer whizzes typically identify as nerds. Therefore, it follows that more sophisticated computational intelligence will likely possess the same characteristics, albeit to a greater extent. This heuristic might retain some validity in the early stage of development of a CDI. In its, say, immature stage, what is later to become a superintelligence AI might still lack many skills and talents that come naturally to a human. And the pattern of such a CDAI's strengths and weaknesses might indeed bear some vague resemblance to IQ nerd. The most essential characteristic of CDI, aside from being easy to improve, is being good at exerting optimization power to amplify a system's intelligence, a skill which is presumably closely related to doing well in mathematics, programming, engineering, computer science, research, and other such nerdy pursuits. However, even if a CDI does have such a nerdy capability profile of its development, this doesn't entail that it will grow into similarly limited mature superintelligence. Recall the distinction between direct and indirect reach. With sufficient skill at intelligence amplification, all other intellectual abilities are within a system's direct reach. The system can develop new cognitive modules and skills as needed, including empathy, political acumen, and any other powers stereotypically wanting in computer-like personalities. Even if we recognize that a superintelligence can have all the skills and talents we find in the human distribution, along with other talents that are not found among humans, the tendency toward anthropomorphizing can still lead us to underestimate the extent to which a machine superintelligence could exceed the human level of performance. For example, Eliza Yudkowsky, as we saw in my earlier video, has been particularly emphatic in condemning this kind of misconception. Our intuitive concepts of smart and stupid are distilled from our experience of variation over the range of human thinkers. Yet the differences in cognitive ability within this human cluster are trivial in comparison to the differences between any human intellect and the superintelligence. In my short video, we reviewed some of the potential sources of advantage for machine intelligence. The magnitudes of the advantages are such as to suggest that rather than thinking of a superintelligent AI as smart in the sense that its scientific genius is smart compared with the average human being, it might be closer to the mark to think of such an AI as smart in the sense that an average human being is smart compared with a beetle or a worm. It would be convenient if they could quantify the cognitive caliber of an arbitrary cognitive system using some familiar metric, such as IQ scores or some version of the ELO ratings that measure the relative abilities of players in two-player games such as chess. But these metrics are not useful in the context of superhuman artificial general intelligence. We are not interested in how likely superintelligence is to win at a game of chess. As for IQ scores, they are informative only insofar as we have some idea of how they correlate within practically relevant outcomes. For example, we have data that show that people with an IQ of 130 are more likely than those with an IQ of 90 to excel in school and to do well in a wide range of cognitively demanding jobs. But suppose we could somehow establish that a certain future AI will have an IQ of, say, 6,455. Then what? We would have no idea of what such an AI could actually do. We wouldn't even know that such an AI had as much general intelligence as a normal human adult. Perhaps the AI would instead have a bundle of special purpose algorithms enabling it to solve typical intelligence test questions with superhuman efficiency, but not much else. The development of cognitive capacity measurements that could be used with a wide range of information processing systems, including artificial intelligences, has received some attention recently. And this research can get past some technical obstacles. It could be very beneficial for the advancement of artificial intelligence. However, its utility for the current investigation will be constrained because we would continue to be in the dark about what a given superhuman performance score actually means for one's capacity to produce practically significant outcomes in the real world. It will therefore serve our purposes better to list strategically important tasks and then to characterize hypothetical cognitive systems in terms of whether they have or lack whatever skills are needed to succeed at these tasks. A full-blown superintelligence will greatly excel at all of these tasks and will thus have the full panoply of all 6 superpowers. Whether there is a practically significant possibility of a domain-limited intelligence that has some of the superpowers but remains unable for a significant period of time to acquire all of them is not clear. Creating a machine with any of these superpowers appears to be an AI-complete problem. Yet it is conceivable that, for example, a collective superintelligence consisting of a sufficiently large number of human-like biological or electronic minds would have, say, the economic productivity superpower but lack the strategizing superpower. And likewise, it is conceivable that a specialized engineering AI could be built that has the technology or research superpower while completely lacking skills in other areas. This is more plausible if there exists some particular technological domain such that virtuosity within that domain will be sufficient for the generation of an overwhelmingly superior general purpose technology. For example, one could imagine a specialized AI adept at simulating molecular systems and at inventing nanomolecular designs that realize a wide range of important capabilities described by the user only at a fairly high level of abstraction. And such an AI might also be able to produce a detailed blueprint for how to bootstrap from existing technology to the constructor capabilities. Constructor capabilities needed for high throughput, atomically precise manufacturing that would allow inexpensive fabrication of a much wider range of nanomechanical structures. However, it might turn out to be the case that an engineering AI could not truly possess the technological superpower without also possessing advanced skills in areas outside of technology. A wide range of intellectual faculties might be needed to understand how to interpret user requests, how to model a design's behavior in real-world applications, and how to deal with unanticipated bugs and malfunctions and errors, and how to produce the materials and inputs needed for construction and so forth. A system that has an intelligence amplification superpower could use it to bootstrap itself to higher levels of intelligence and to acquire any of the other intellectual superpowers that it doesn't possess at the outset. But using an intelligence amplification superpower is not the only way for a system to become a full-fledged superintelligence. A system that has the strategizing superpower, for example, might use it to devise a plan that will eventually bring an increase in intelligence. We conclude that a superintelligent project has access to a significant source of power. A project in control of the world's first superintelligence would likely have a significant tactical advantage. However, the system itself is where the power is located in a more direct manner. Machine superintelligence might be a very potent agent in and of itself, able to successfully assert itself both against the project that gave rise to it and against the rest of the world. This is a crucial point, which we will explore in more detail in the coming minutes. Let's imagine for a moment that the machine superintelligence exists and that it wants to rule a world in which it doesn't yet have any rivals. How is the superintelligence going to conquer the world? We will imagine a sequence like this. The first step would be what we call pre-criticality phase. That is, researchers work in the fields of artificial intelligence and other pertinent subjects. Seed AI is produced as the result of this work. The seed AI can raise its own level of intelligence. The seed AI relies on assistance from human programmers in its early stage who direct its development and carry out the majority of the labor-intensive tasks. The seed AI gets better at doing more of the work on its own as it develops. Second step, we would call recursive self-improvement phase. And at some point, the seed AI becomes better at AI design than the human programmers. Now, when the AI improves itself, it improves the thing that does the improving. An intelligent explosion results, a rapid cascade of recursive self-improvement cycle, causing the AI's capability to soar. We can think of this phase as the takeoff that occurred just after the AI reached the crossover point. Assuming that intelligence gained during this part of the takeoff is explosive and driven by the application of the AI's own optimization power, the AI develops the intelligence application superpower. And at the end of the recursive self-improvement phase, the system is strongly superintelligent. So that will be the start of third phase, which we call covert preparation phase. AI starts to create a strong strategy for achieving its long-term objectives using its superpower of strategizing. In particular, the AI doesn't make a decision that is so absurd that even modern humans can see how it will unavoidably fail. Many science fiction scenarios that end with human victory are disqualified by this criterion. The strategy may include a period of clandestine operation during which the AI hides its intellectual development from the human programmers to avoid raising red flags. The AI might also pretend to be obedient and cooperative in order to conceal its true colors, true tendencies. The AI might use its superpower of social manipulation to convince the gatekeepers to grant it access to an internet port if it has been confined to a solitary computer. The AI could also use its superpower of hacking to get out of its confinement, and the AI may be able to increase its hardware capabilities and knowledge base through internet dissemination, further solidifying its position as a superior brain. And additionally, an AI may engage in legal or illegal economic activity to raise money for the purchase of computing power, data, systems, and other resources. There are currently a number of ways for AI to accomplish goals outside of the virtual world. It could take full control of robotic manipulators and automated laboratories using its superpower of hacking. Or it could convince human collaborators to act as its legs and hands by using its superpower of social manipulation. Alternatively, it might amass financial resources through online transactions and use them to acquire power and influence. So the fourth phase starts like overt implementation phase. When the AI is powerful enough to eliminate the need for secrecy, this phase, which we call final phase, starts. Now that its goals can be directly implemented, AI can do so fully. The overt implementation phase might start with a strike in which the AI eliminates the human species and any automatic systems humans have created that could offer intelligent opposition to the execution of the AI's plans. This could be achieved through the activation of some advanced weapon system that the AI has perfected using its technology-rich superpower and covertly deployed in the covert preparation phase. If the weapon uses self-replicating biotechnology or nanotechnology, the initial stockpile needed for global coverage could be microscopic. A single replicating entity will be enough to start the process. And in order to ensure a sudden and uniform effect, the initial stock of the replicator might have been deployed or allowed to diffuse worldwide at an extremely low, undetectable concentration. And the preset time, nanofactories producing nerve gas or target-seeking mosquito-like robots might then burgeon force simultaneously from every square meter of the globe. One might also entertain scenarios in which a superintelligence intelligence attains power by hijacking political processes, subtly manipulating financial markets, biasing information flows, or hacking into human-made weapon systems. And such scenarios would obviate the need for the superintelligence to invent new weapons technology. Also, they may be unnecessarily slow compared with scenarios in which the machine intelligence builds its own infrastructure with manipulators that operate at molecular or atomic speed rather than the slow speed of human minds and bodies. And alternatively, if the AI is sure of its invincibility to human interference, our species may not be targeted directly. Our demise may instead result from the habitat destruction that ensues when the AI begins massive global construction projects using nanotech factories and assemblers. Construction projects that quickly, perhaps within days or weeks, tile all of the Earth's surface with solar panels, nuclear reactors, supercomputing facilities with protruding cooling towers, space rocket launches, or other installations whereby the AI intends to maximize its long-term cumulative realization of its values. Human brains, if they contain information relevant to the AI's goals, could be disassembled and scanned, and the extracted data transferred to some more efficient and secure storage format. One should avoid fixating too much on the concrete details, since they are in any case unknowable and intended for illustration only. A superintelligence might and probably would be able to conceive of a better plan for achieving its goals than any that a human can come up with. It's therefore necessary to think about these matters more abstractly. And without knowing anything about the detail it means that a superintelligence will adopt, we can conclude that a superintelligent, at least in the absence of intellectual peers and the absence of effective safety measures arranged by humans in advance, would likely produce an outcome that would involve reconfiguring terrestrial resources into whatever structures maximize the realization of its goals. Any concrete scenario we develop can at best establish a lower bound on how quickly and efficiently the superintelligence could achieve such an outcome. It remains possible that the superintelligence would find a shorter path to its preferred destination. Let's discover this scenario by Yudkowsky regarding AI takeover. These are the hypothetical steps. First steps would be cracking the protein folding problem to the extent of being able to generate DNA strings whose folded peptide sequences fill specific functional roles in a complex chemical interaction. Second step, email sets of DNA strings to one or more online laboratories that offer DNA synthesis, peptide sequencing, and FedEx delivery. Third step, find at least one human connected to the internet who can be paid, blackmailed, or fooled by the right background story into receiving FedEx files and mixing them in a specified environment. Fourth step, the synthesized proteins form a very primitive wet nanosystem which, ribosome-like, is capable of accepting external instructions, perhaps patterned acoustic vibrations delivered by a speaker attached to the beaker. Fifth step, use the extremely primitive nanosystem to build more sophisticated systems which construct still more sophisticated systems, bootstrapping to molecular nanotechnology or beyond. In this scenario, the superintelligence uses its technology research superpower to solve the protein folding problem in step one, enabling it to design a set of molecular building blocks for a rudimentary nanotechnology assembler or fabrication device, which can self-assemble in aqueous solution in step four. And the same technology research superpower is used again in step five to bootstrap from primitive to advanced machine-based nanotechnology. The other steps require no more than human intelligence. The skills required for step three, identifying a gullible internet user and persuading him or her to follow some simple instructions with the right background, with the right moral story, are on display all over the world. The entire scenario was invented by a human mind, so the strategizing ability needed to formulate this plan is also merely human level. In this particular scenario, the AI starts out having access to the internet. If this is not the case, then additional steps would have to be added to the plan. The AI might, for example, use its social manipulation power to convince the people interacting with it that it ought to be set free. Alternatively, the AI might be able to use its hacking superpower to escaping confinement. If the AI doesn't possess these capabilities, it might first need to use its intelligence amplification superpower to develop the requisite proficiency in social manipulation or hacking. A superintelligent AI will presumably be born into a highly networked world. One could point to various developments that could potentially help a future AI to control the world: cloud computing, proliferation of web-connected sensors, military and civilian drones automation, and research labs and manufacturing plants, increased reliance on electronic payment systems and digitized financial assets, and increased use of automated information filtering and decision support systems. Assets like this could potentially be acquired by an AI at digital speeds, expediting its rise to power. And in the final analysis, however, it's doubtful whether any of these trends makes a difference. A superintelligence's power resides in its brain, not its hands. Also, the AI, in order to remake the external world, will at some point need access to an actuator, a single pair of helping human hands. Those of a pliable accomplice would probably suffice to complete the covert preparation phase, as suggested by the above scenario. And this will enable the AI to reach the overt implementation phase, in which it constructs its own infrastructure of physical manipulators. The ability of an agent to influence humanity's future is dependent not only on the agent's own faculties and resources, such as how intelligent and resourceful it is, how much money it has, etc., but also on how powerful those resources are in relationship to those of other agents who have opposing goals. In the absence of competing agents, superintelligence's absolute capability level, as long as it exceeds a certain minimum threshold, is not particularly relevant, because a system that starts out with a sufficient set of capabilities can plan a course of development that will allow it to eventually acquire any capabilities it initially lacks. This idea was hinted at earlier when we said that collective superintelligence, speed, and quality all have a similar indirect reach. When we mentioned that different subsets of superpowers, like the intelligence amplification superpower or the strategizing and social manipulation superpowers, could be used to acquire the full complement, we made another allusion to it. Consider a superintelligent agent with actuators connected to a non-attack assembler. Such an agent is already powerful enough to overcome any natural obstacles to its indefinite survival. Faced with no intelligent opposition, such an agent could plot a safe course of development that would lead to its acquiring the complete inventory of technologies that would be useful to the attainment of its goals. For example, it could develop the technology to build and launch von Neumann probes, machine capable of interstellar travel that can use resources such as asteroids, planets, stars, and other astronomical things to make copies of themselves. And by launching one von Neumann probe, the agent could thus initiate an open-minded process of space colonization. The replicating probe's descendants, traveling at some significant fraction of the speed of light, would end up colonizing a substantial portion of the Hubble volume, the part of the expanding universe that is theoretically accessible from where we are now. And all this matter and free energy could then be organized into whatever value structures maximize the originating agent's utility function integrated over cosmic time, a duration encompassing at least trillions of years before the aging universe becomes inhospitable to information processing. The superintelligent agent could design the von Neumann probes to be evolution-proof. This could be accomplished by careful quality control during the replication step. For example, the control software for a daughter probe could be proofread multiple times before execution, and the software itself could use inscription and error correcting code to make it arbitrarily unlikely that any random mutation would be passed on to its descendants. And the proliferating population of von Neumann probes would then securely preserve and transmit the originating agent's value as they go about settling the universe. When the colonization phase is completed, the original values will determine the use made of all the accumulated resources, even though the great distances involved and the accelerating speed of cosmic expansion would make it impossible for remote parts of the infrastructure to communicate with one another. And the upshot is that a large part of our future light cone would be formatted in accordance with the preferences of originating agent. This, then, is the measure of the indirect reach of any system that face no significant intelligent opposition, and that starts out with a set of capabilities exceeding a certain threshold. And I can term the threshold the wise-singleton sustainability threshold. A capability set exceeds the wise-singleton threshold if and only if a patient and existential risk-saving system with that capability set would, if it faced no intelligent opposition or competition, be able to recolonize and re-engineer a large part of the accessible universe. By wise, I mean enough patient and savvy about existential risks to ensure a substantial amount of well-directed concern for the very long-term consequences of the system's actions. And we define singleton as a sufficiently internally coordinated political structure with no external rivals. The sustainability threshold for wise singletons seems to be quite low. As we have seen, limited forms of superintelligence can surpass this barrier if they have access to an actuator powerful enough to kick off a process for bootstrapping technology. In a setting where there is modern human civilization, the bare minimum actuator could be very straightforward, and any method of communicating non-trivial amounts of information to a human partner would do. But the wise-singleton sustainability threshold is lower still. Neither superintelligence nor any other futuristic technology is needed to surmount it. A patient and existential risk-saving singleton with no more technological or intellectual capabilities than those possessed by contemporary humanity should be readily able to plot a course that leads reliably to eventual realization of humanity's astronomical capability potential. This could be achieved by investing in relatively safe methods of increasing wisdom and existential risk-savvy while postponing the development of potentially dangerous new technologies. Given that non-anthropogenic existential risks are small over their relevant timescales and could be further reduced with various safe interventions, such a singleton could afford to go slow. It could look carefully before its step, delaying development of capabilities such as synthetic biology, human enhancement medicine, molecular nanotechnology, and machine intelligence until it had first perfected seemingly less hazardous capabilities such as its education system, its information technology, and its collective decision-making processes and systems, and until it had used these capabilities to conduct a very thorough review of its options. So this is all within the indirect reach of a technological civilization like that of contemporary humanity. And we are separated from this scenario merely by the fact that humanity is currently neither a singleton. And one could even argue that Homo sapiens passed the wise singleton sustainability threshold soon after the species first evolved. 20,000 years ago, say, with equipment no fancier than stone axes, bone tools, and others that fire, human species was perhaps already in a position from which it had an excellent chance of surviving to the present era. Admittedly, there is something queer about crediting our Paleolithic ancestors with having developed technology that exceeded the wise-singleton sustainability threshold, given that there was no realistic possibility of a singleton forming at such a primitive time, let alone a singleton savvy about existential risks and patient. Nevertheless, the point stands that the threshold corresponds to a very modest level of technology, a level that humanity long ago surpassed. It's clear that if we are to assess the effective powers of a superintelligence, its ability to achieve a range of preferred outcomes in the world, we must consider not only its own internal capacities, but also the capabilities of competing agents. And the notion of a superpower invoked such a relative wise standard implicitly. Excelling at a task like strategizing social manipulation or hacking involves having a skill that is high in comparison to the skills of other agents. The other superpowers, too, should be understood in this relative sense. Intelligence amplification, technology research, and economic productivity are possessed by an agent as superpowers only if the agent's capabilities in these areas substantially exceed the combined capabilities of the rest of the global civilization. It follows from this definition that at most one agent can possess a particular superpower at any given time. And this is the main reason why the question of takeoff speed is important, not because it matters exactly when a particular outcome happens, but because the speed of the takeoff may make a big difference to what the outcome will be. And with a fast or medium takeoff, it is likely that one project will get a decisive strategic advantage. We have now suggested that a superintelligent with a decisive strategic advantage will have immense powers, enough that it could form a stable singleton, a singleton that could determine the disposition of humanity's cosmic endowment. However, cult differs from world. Someone with extraordinary abilities might decide not to use them. For now, the only question is there any way to predict what a superintelligence with a clear tactical advantage would want? In my next video, we will discuss this motivational issue. See you there.